Gonna start another classic video game series on this channel with the first Contra. This will cover both the arcade original and the NES part played through the Anniversary Collection. My first experience with Contra was through a bootleg 105 games in one cart my uncle had on the Game Boy that only had about 10 games really. I've mentioned this cart before. But the Game Boy part of Contra 3 was on it, and because of the methods I've wound up trying Contra games throughout my childhood, I've never actually played any of the Probotector versions that were released in PAL territories. Set in the year 2633, the terrorist Red Falcon organisation are attacking the rest of the Earth from their Galuga Archipelago base near New Zealand. The Earth Marine Corps Contra unit sends in Bill Riser and Lance Bean, but these were done with just one player so he doesn't get to appear. So I start the game and the first level is in the jungle. You can tell I'm not used to this version as I don't know which button shoots at first, so I'm just having to flip over the enemies. Within seconds I blow up a turret to get the laser, but I don't learn at first that holding the button stops it from firing properly. Not that it matters as I soon after get the spread, which is just very good. But I lose it when the bridge explodes underneath me and takes me out. So instead I just stay running along the bottom of the screen being careful. Moving forward I have various turrets, running soldiers and the odd soldier hiding in the trees to deal with. I then reach the boss, the defence wall. He has two turrets in the middle, a soldier on top and then the main door at the bottom once I've taken them out. Blow it open to finish the first stage. Easy. Now the second stage is the base. This changes up the gameplay so now I'm running towards the screen, following this map up top. Once I reach the end I move right to reach the next tunnel with an electric barrier and soldiers shooting at me from the back. I have to shoot the target in the back to turn off the fence so I can move forward again. The next tunnel has another target but also a turret and bombs rolling towards me, but I deal with those quickly and move on again. The next one has this big block taking up space and I die because I forget I can crouch in this game, which I need to do to shoot the target. The last tunnel has two turrets that I deal with quickly, but I fail to notice a stray bullet and die again. I then respawn right in front of another and lose my last life. But my continue puts me where I died and I blow open the final door to face the boss, the Garma Kilmer. I start with 6 targets, 2 of them firing a spread shot of 3 bullets at once. I take out the other 4 but get killed by the cannons when they open up. Then the actual boss shows up, this eye firing huge fire hoops. They can be destroyed from being shot though, so I just keep on moving, dodging or shooting the enemy projectiles until I get enough shots in to kill the boss. I take the lift up into the third stage, the waterfall, and I lose my last life within seconds flinging myself face first into a bullet. I have to keep jumping up the screen to climb the waterfall while dealing with many of the same enemies from the first stage. I grab my first barrier which grants me 3 free hits, and the machine gun which vastly speeds up my rate of fire. As I climb, holes spewing out boulders start to appear. I just keep on jumping until I reach the top and face the boss, the Gromaides. He has 2 normal turrets and a 5-shot spread that opens up and kills me again after the turrets are dealt with. The weak spot is directly above the centre cannon, so I have to keep an eye out and be ready to dodge. I'm not good at that part and lose my third continue. But I take out the cannons and get a free shot at the weak spot. I kill it and the door is blown open, leading to stage 4, which is the second base. As I reach the first obstacle, I have 2 cannons with the switch to turn off the fence being above one, making it the first time I have to jump to hit it. I die twice dealing with this section. The second one is much more simple as I just have to shoot the middle of the screen. Third one is also easy, I just have to crouch in the middle. But the fourth is just filled with stuff. 2 crates, 3 cannons and the switch requires jumping. I'm doing well until I grab the laser, which just feels wrong in these levels, resulting in my death. But I don't last much longer and get killed again, using up all my lives and continues, having to start from the beginning. So on my second try, my first continue is lost against the second boss. I make it back to where I game overed last time, still on my second continue with 2 lives left. This time I aim at the switch to start with and take it out in no time. This time the final door I need to blow open has a crate in front of it that I need to get rid of first. I die once here, but get through it soon after. Here I face the 4th boss, Goro Muga. It starts with 4 targets and the 5th one being a spread shot at the top, along with soldiers running by in the background. I lose my second continue colliding with one of them. I quickly take out the cannons and the real boss shows up. These 2 sort of moving heads moving along the top of the screen. They fire these slow moving projectiles that suddenly speed up and home in if they get close and I don't destroy them. And I struggle to get used to them, losing my entire last continue to them. Attempt number 3 and I'm slowly getting better. This time my first continue lasts me all the way to the 3rd boss. I make it back to the 4th boss on my last life of my second. I still lose it to those projectiles, but this time I take out one of the heads just before being killed myself. And then once again dealing with just one. But in the end I manage to take it out. I'm left with just 1 life for the final level, which is long and has multiple sections, first being the snowfield. There's a lot of the same enemies but now there are bombs being thrown in from the background. There's also this big floating ship constantly dropping bombs and spewing endless soldiers with jetpacks. I end up gaining a second life before I lose it to one right away. I get a spread and take it down, but don't last much longer when I get shot and lose my last life. I have another continue still, so I either gained one or I miscounted. I keep moving and drop down to lose another life to a soldier manning a turret and then a second one. After him are a few scuba diving soldiers poking out of the water to fire rockets at me. I get back in front of the forest only to get shot down by this tank, a Dogra, and that's the end of that run. Attempt number 4 has me lose my first continue in the same spot as last time, but then I make it all the way back through to stage 5 with all my lives, but the turrets take all 3 of them and my second continue. I make it back to the Dogra and just stand back, under its gun, and easily blow it up. There's a second one and I take that out too, moving into the energy zone section. I meet my first Gordea, who throws bladed balls towards me, but I easily dodge them and take him out. But yet another turret shows up on screen while I'm mid-jump and kills me. I avoid the flamethrowers and take out the next turret for just a regular soldier to kill me by colliding with me. As I deal with several flamethrowers at once, I think, finally, another weapon, and it's the fucking laser again. I didn't even care that I dropped myself face first into an enemy right after. I get past that section and face a second Gordea who kills me and takes my third continue. Just 3 lives left now as I kill him. Once that's done, I'm dealing with the hangar zone. Here the main obstacle is spiked balls rising and lowering. They can't be destroyed, so I have no choice but to be careful and try to get around them. I will say, as the frame rate dips when more enemies come on screen while I'm going under them, it really makes me panic at first as I forget that the spikes are slowed down as well. But at this point there's so much going on, the game slows to a crawl. To be honest, I don't mind. I'm perfectly fine with frame rates lowering as long as it doesn't get too slow and I can use the slowdown to my advantage, and in this case I can, as once I'm used to it kind of helps me gather myself a bit and not do something stupid trying to act without thinking. But eventually I make it to the end and enter the aliens' lair. Yeah, the terrorists are being helped out by aliens. It's one of those things that everyone knows about this series, but I think it's supposed to be a twist in this first game. I get killed by the new flying alien heads just as I reach the game's true villain, the Emperor Demon Dragon God Java. He stays there spitting out more alien heads as I hide behind this alien skull rock and keep shooting at it, dying again. But after respawning I quickly blow its head up and regain a lost life. I keep moving along its body, dealing with faces in its side spitting fireballs at me. I lose the life I regained and then almost lose my last one, not noticing faces are in the floors now as well. I start to get facehugger things coming for me as well, but not long after is the final boss, Java's Heart, known as the Gomeramos King. It has 6 eggs spawning facehuggers, and I resign myself to the fact I'm gonna lose my last life at this point, so I just keep jumping in place, holding the fire button and waiting for that. But doing that actually works and I kill the boss. I was not at all expecting that. I then get the credits. The original arcade Contra is fine. I had fun playing it, but it did feel a little awkward at times, especially my jump. I don't know if it's just me, but I always felt off when I had to jump. But also the thing is that I've played the NES version, which I feel improves things a lot, as we'll now see. So yeah, the NES part. I'll not go in as much detail as I did the arcade version to try and avoid being repetitive. First thing to point out is that the game just feels much better to play. It's faster for one thing, and even though I didn't mind it happening in the arcade, the lack of slowdown to the arcade's level is an improvement. Also, when aiming diagonally while shooting, you instantly snap into that direction instead of in the arcade where you quickly go through an in-between middle direction. This reduces you from 16 to 8 directions to aim in, but 8 of those directions weren't necessary, so it streamlines things a bit. The laser is still shit though. Another thing I've got to say is that while the game looks worse on a purely technical level, I still think the downgraded NES graphics look more appealing, and definitely more easy to make out everything, as many deaths of mine in the arcade were just not being able to make out bullets. I genuinely think the black night sky on the brighter forest is an improvement of the arcade. Even the downgraded music I mostly prefer. The arcade version had a certain sound to it that many arcade games of the time had, and while I do think Contra sounded better than most of those, I still find the NES sounds more appealing here. The biggest change is the difficulty, and while making a game too hard just for the sake of it is a peeve of mine, I feel it works really well here. It's mainly just from the game being faster, as there are usually less enemies on screen than on the arcade. But it gives this kind of Ninja Gaiden feeling, where things get tense but you just end up in the zone while playing. Though another thing that makes it harder is that using a continue no longer starts you off where you died, but at the beginning of the stage. When it comes to the second stage, the map in the top of the screen was removed and it's no big loss. It was never required to understand what was going on, and even then, the seconds long parts where I have to move left to the next tunnel were removed. You can tell I'm not used to it though as I get my first game over here. That first run was just a curiosity though, just to see how far I'd get. The intention was to always use the Konami code for the 30 lives, as any chance to get past limited continues I will absolutely take. Even the second boss looks more intimidating on NES, with the Iron 8's projectiles looking a lot bigger. While doing the waterfall I grabbed the flamethrower, which was in the arcade version but I somehow managed to go through every single attempt without ever getting it. This level is just far better than on arcade as well. It's still challenging without it just being a lot of shit on screen you can't make out, and you actually have to think instead of brute forcing your way up with mashing jump. It goes on for quite a bit longer as well. The boss was completely redesigned. Not only does it look different, it now has 2 tentacles swinging around that each shoot fireballs towards me. It can only be damaged by shooting it in its open mouth, when it spits out 3 more fireballs at once. I can make things easier by destroying the tentacles by shooting the red segments on the ends. Once they're gone, it's so much easier. Stage 4 is just another base level, but there are now more switches to destroy to turn off the barriers, at least one tunnel having 4 at once. The boss is pretty much the same. Now when we get to stage 5, things have changed, as the 4 section last level has now been split into 4 levels each, with stage 5 just being the snowfield now. The stage's verticality was trimmed down quite a lot, and the huge ship at the beginning was removed. The 2 dog grids have also been buffed, its biggest buff just being the ability to aim its cannon instead of only being able to fire over me. Instead, when I die, I end up phasing through it and it works both times. The dog just keeps on moving forward and forgets me. Instead, the Goldath, the ship that was once at the beginning, is now the boss at the end of the level. Instead of jetpack soldiers, it's now sending out smaller spinning ships from both sides. And somehow I did it first try without dying while stuck with the laser. The energy zone is now stage 6 and is very similar to the original. The biggest change I've noticed is some of the flamethrowers are no longer time based. They just set off as soon as you get near them, which results in 4 deaths in a row when I think I just had bad timing, and it's still getting me when I realise. That's my first continue lost. That one flamethrower might have a bigger body count than any actual enemy in this playthrough. There are still some timing based ones though, like jumping up these 3 floors without getting killed. That new section goes on for a bit and then it's back to normal with just a single Gordea as the level boss. He has the same moves but is more aggressive and more durable than on arcade. Some of those jumps when he's coming for me while throwing his weapons were incredibly tight, but once I got the pattern down I never died again. The hangar is now stage 7 and is a lot tougher. There are more spikes and they're harder to get past. Not just that, but there are now these spiked walls I have to get through by blowing them up. And some of them are sneaky too, you might have no idea they're gonna come rising up. There's the addition of minecarts as well, and these can be a bit dodgy, as I ride one that passes another, the game gets confused and I end up touching the back of one of them which gets me killed. And then there's that time it tricks me by making me think I could ride one right past all these spikes, but it moves just as slow as the rest and gets me killed again. And while spawning back in I steer myself right into the pit, not my brightest moment. But after dealing with several spiked walls and spiked crushers, I end up outside and have to face another defense wall. This one has a stream of enemies coming out the door and cannons in the floor firing shots that then burst into free when they reach the top of the screen, then fall and cause explosions when they hit the floor. After many deaths I blow up that door and move on. For stage 8, the alien's lair, it's mostly like the original, a tiny bit of platforming before reaching Java, who's now red. While everything else was made harder, Java is still about as easy as it was on arcade. The faces in the ceiling are easier as well, as they and their projectiles are made bigger and thus easier to shoot. Though the section does go on for much longer than it did on arcade. And when I reach the heart, it only has 4 facehugger spawners instead of 6. It's only a little bit harder thanks to the facehuggers being bigger, but I take it out no problem and finish this version too. I get an ending where I escape the island as it explodes and get a congratulations text declaring me a saviour of the universe. And yeah, that's the NES part. It's surprising how many little tweaks can make a game so much more fun even without getting into the bigger late game changes. Of all the arcade and NES port duos I've covered in this channel, I'd say this one had the biggest improvement and will probably have the biggest gap in the ranking between the original arcade and NES port. Of all the classic Contra games on the collection, Super Contra is the one I've tried the least, and I'd never even touched the arcade version, so I'm interested in seeing if both versions improve over their predecessors, but that'll have to be another time. But the most important part of this video is the NES port of Contra has finally knocked One Night Stand out of the 69th spot on the ranking. I worry people may think I had it ranked there so long as a joke, but I didn't, so it's nice to deal with that finally.